warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Sita Maimunah and I'm from 5BA class. In this great opportunity, I'm going to present about sampling in research methodology. When you conduct research about a group of people, it's rarely possible to collect data from every person in that group. Instead, you select a sample. The sample is the group of individuals who will actually participate in the research. So, what is sampling? Sampling is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger populations. The methodology used to sample from a larger populations depend on the type of analysis being performed, but it may include simple random sampling or systematic sampling. To draw the valid conclusions from your result, you have to carefully decide how you will select a sample that is representative of the group as a whole. There are two types of sampling methods. First is probability sampling, involves random selections, allowing you to make statistical inference about the whole group. And the second is non-probability sampling that involves non-random selections based on convenience or other criteria, allowing you to easily collect initial data. You should clearly explain how you selected your sample in the methodology sections of your paper or thesis. Next, you need to understand the difference between a population and a sample and identify the target populations of your research. First, the populations is the entire group that you want to draw conclusions about, and the sample is a specific group of individuals that you will collect data from. Next is about probability sampling methods. Probability sampling methods means that every member of the populations has a chance of being selected. It is mainly used in quantitative research. If you want to produce results that are representative of the whole populations, you need to use a probability sampling technique. There are four main types of probability sample. First is sample random sampling. In the sample random sample, every member of the populations has an equal chance of being selected. Your sampling frame should include the whole populations. To conduct this type of sampling, you can use tools like random number generators or other techniques that are based entirely on chance. For example, you can read on the screen. You want to select a random sample of 100 employees of company X. You assign a number to every employee in the company database from 1 to 1000 and use a random number generator to select 100 numbers. And the next is about systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is similar to simple random sampling, but it is usually slightly easier to conduct. Every member of the population is listed with a number, but instead of randomly generating numbers, individuals are chosen at regular intervals. For example, all employees of the company are listed in alphabetical order. From the first 10 numbers, you randomly select a starting point, number 6. From number 6 onwards, every 10 persons on the list is selected 6, 16, 26, 36, and so on. And you end up with a sample of 100 people. And the third is about stratified sampling. Stratified sampling involves dividing the populations into subpopulations that may differ in important ways. It allows you to draw more precise conclusions by ensuring that every subgroup is properly representative in the sample. To use this sampling method, you divide the populations into subgroups, call it strata, based on the relevant characteristics, for example, gender, age, range, income bracket, job role, and etc. Based on the overall proportions of the populations, you calculate how many people should be sampled from each subgroup. Then you use random or systematic sampling to select a sample from each subgroup. For example, the company has 800 female employees and 200 male employees. You want to ensure that the sample reflects the gender balance of the company. So you sort the populations into 2 strata based on gender. Then you use random sampling on each group, selecting 80 women and 20 women, which give you a representative sample of 100 people. And the fourth is about cluster sampling. Cluster sampling also involves dividing the populations into subgroups, but each subgroups should have similar characteristics to the whole sample. Instead of sampling individuals from each subgroup, you randomly select entire subgroups. This method is good for dealing with large and dispersed populations, but there is more risk of error in the sample, as there could be substantial difference between clusters. It's difficult to guarantee that the sample clusters are really representative of the whole populations. For the example, the company has offices in 10 cities across the country, all with roughly the same number of employees in similar role. You don't have the capacity to travel to every office to collect your data, so you use random sampling to select 3 offices that are your clusters. Next is about non-probability sampling methods. In a non-probability sample, individuals are selected based on non-random criteria, and not every individual has a chance being included. This type of sample is easier and cheaper to access, but it is higher risk of sampling bias, and you cannot use it to make valid statistical inference about the whole populations. Non-probability sampling techniques are often appropriate for exploratory and qualitative research. In this type of research, the aim is not to test a hypothesis about the broad populations, but to develop an initial understanding of a small or under-researched populations. There is some kinds of non-probability sampling. First, in convenience sampling. A convenience sample simply includes the individuals who happen to be most accessible to the researcher. This is an easy and inexpensive way to gather initial data, but there is no way to tell if this sample is representative of the populations, so it can produce a generalizable result. You can see the sample for the example. You are researching opinions about student support service in your university. So after each of your classes, you ask your fellow students to complete a survey on this topic. This is a convenient way to gather data, but as you only surveyed students taking the same classes as you at the same level, the sample is not representative of all the students at your university. Second is voluntary response sampling. Similar to a convenience sample, a voluntary response sample is mainly based on ease of access. Instead of the researcher choosing the participant and directly contacting them, people volunteer themselves. For example, by responding to a public online survey and etc. Okay, move. And the third is purposive sampling. This type of sampling involves the researchers using their judgment to select a sample that is most useful to the purpose of the research. It is often used in qualitative research, where the researchers want to gain detailed knowledge about a specific phenomenon rather than make statistical inference. An effective purposive sample must have clear criteria and rationale for inclusions. And 4 is snowball sampling. If the population is hard to access, snowball sampling can be used to require participants via other participants. The number of people you have access to snowballs as you get in contact with more people. You can see the example in the slide. Okay, that's all I think about my presentations about sampling, about probability samplings and non-probability sampling. I hope you can get more information about this video. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.